Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The president or anybody else?
Seems you'd remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but...
Perhaps they've suggested?
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
Hinted?
I don't know.
Inferred? You don't know. Okay.
Senator Kamala Harris and her epic side-eye seemed to anticipate months ago that there was more to Attorney General Barr's story, something the rest of us learned definitively this week. Meanwhile, if Donald Trump is impeached over the Ukraine scandal that has also pulled in Mr. Barr, the impeachment goes to the Senate for trial, and Senator Harris would be one of Trump's 100 jurors deciding whether he is removed from office. And joining me now is presidential candidate Senator Kamala Harris of California. Thank you so much, Senator, for being here this morning.
So great to be with you, Joy. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I don't know whether you ever found out whether or not Mr. Barr does understand the definition of the word suggested, but you have...
You know what, Joy? He hinted that he did.
Surmise, hinted. Yeah, the calling on of synonyms was actually quite good on your part. But
right.
At the time when you were asking him those questions, can we ask, did you have a sense that he had actually called on, or did you have evidence before you that you couldn't discuss at the time that he had actually begun an investigation into those who investigated the Russia's attack on our election?
So at the time I asked him that question, Joy, I had a very clear sense of who Donald Trump is. Because remember, even before that, there was information that he had asked Jeff Sessions to investigate the Clintons. So I had a good sense of the character of Donald Trump and what he is inclined and willing to do in terms of making political requests of members of his cabinet, including the head of the United States Department of Justice, the Attorney General. So that was really where I was coming from in asking that question, because sadly, it's a question that needs to be asked of members of Donald Trump's cabinet, because the rules just seem to not apply to Donald Trump according to Donald Trump. And that's why I asked the question I did.
And we now know from Tom Bossert, who served in the Trump administration, that he says that this whole conspiracy theory, this CrowdStrike conspiracy theory that is related to the Seth Rich conspiracy theory, that Donald Trump clearly believes, because the first favor that he asked of the president of Ukraine was that he wanted him to use his Justice Department to look into this conspiracy theory, which of course would exonerate Russia. We now know that Donald Trump actually believes that conspiracy theory as well. Do you believe that there should now be hearings on whether or not Donald Trump actually attempted to use the Justice Department, Mr. Barr, who was implicated in that, to try to investigate a fake conspiracy theory that would exonerate Russia?
Absolutely. I suspect that will be a subject of the impeachment hearings. Because here's the thing, Joy. What we have seen over the last 2.5 years is a corrupt administration from top to bottom. And, you know, going back to, for example, the questions I asked the Attorney General, Barr, he should have been able to answer that with a simple yes or no. Right? And and he should come back before Congress to answer the question again with an either yes or no, and make it clear to us and the American people what's going on with that administration. But yes, all of that should be investigated, because I think the American people have a very good reason to believe that Donald Trump has used the taxpayer dollars and the office of the President of the United States, which is our office, it is the people's office, in a way that has been about himself and his political gain, not to mention what might be still undisclosed or disclosed about his financial gain. So Yes, absolutely. All of that is on the table.
And William
and
Barr
should be explored.
William Barr has now come out and said that he is angry or bemused, I guess he has told others, by being drawn into this Ukraine conversation by Donald Trump and sort of likened to Rudy Giuliani, who, of course, is Donald Trump's actual personal attorney, while Mr. Barr, I think many would say, simply behaves as if he is his personal attorney. He said that he had nothing to do with it. And you said you want him to testify before Congress again. Do you believe that William Barr would actually show up if subpoenaed to testify?
Joy, he is the top law enforcement official of the United States of America and the top lawyer of the United States of America. If he is subpoenaed by a court or by Congress to testify, and he is going to be true to his oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, he better show up, and he should testify under oath. You know, part of my background was for 2 terms. I was the Attorney General of the state of California, a state of 40 million people. I ran the 2nd largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. As someone who has dedicated my life to the fight for justice, I will tell you, for the sake of the integrity of America's system of democracy and justice, Barr needs to come before Congress, and he needs to tell the truth and expose what has been corruption, we believe, and misconduct by this administration and this president.
I want to play you what you said about Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, who actually, interestingly enough, is a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. One might not believe that, but he was. Here you are saying that he should be disbarred. Take a listen.
I actually also think that the State Bar of New York needs to investigate Rudy Giuliani.
You think he should lose his license?
Well, I think that there should be an investigation of whether he should actually retain a license and whether he's qualified to do that. And does he pass all of the requirements that we have for the ethical behavior of a lawyer?
Given the behavior of Mr. Barr, both in intervening in stopping this whistleblower complaint from coming to Congress, even though he was named in it along with Rudy Giuliani, in his performance of his duties seemingly as a defense attorney for the president, would you say the same thing about his law license, given his behavior as attorney general, that he might need to be investigated regarding his holding of a law license?
Well, first, let's take one step at a time. First, he needs to come before Congress, which has a responsibility to conduct oversight. Because, you know, stepping back, Joy, this is how I think about it. We, you know, the framers of our Constitution and the founders of our country, they imagined a moment like this, right? They imagined that there might be a moment in America's history where a branch of government abuses their power and their authority. And so they designed our system of democracy with checks and balances, 3 co-equal independent branches of government, and then the 4th leg on that table being a free and independent press. Thank you, Joy. And so what we are seeing is that the design of our democracy is being tested, meaning, are the checks and balances going to kick in? And in this case, it means Congress needs to be the check and balance on the abuse of power by the executive branch, which is the president and his administration. So what needs to happen in terms of next steps is that Congress needs to be able to act. Bill Barr, as a member of this administration and the executive branch, needs to come before Congress, testify under oath, so that we in the United States Congress can hold him to account for any abuse of his office and his president.
And we know that Donald Trump's closest ally, perhaps other than Mitch McConnell in the Senate, Lindsey Graham, he came forward and tweeted, I believe this was today, in America you can't even get a parking ticket based on hearsay testimony, but you can impeach a president? I certainly hope not. Perhaps one might find that a bit ironic, given that he was one of the leaders of the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. But what do you say to that, as a former attorney general, that he's claiming that this testimony or this letter from the whistleblower is nothing but hearsay, and that it should not be the basis of an impeachment inquiry? Your thoughts?
I just think that we cannot listen to voices that are trying to confuse and distract the American people from what is happening. There is an allegation that has been found to be credible of all that we know is in the complaint. And so now the proceedings will start to do the investigation. There is no question in my mind that direct evidence will be presented, and then then we will see where it goes. But it is absolutely misleading the public to suggest that the impeachment proceedings are going to be based on hearsay. No, they're going to bring in witnesses who have firsthand account about what they are speaking of, and that's what's going to be the basis of this. So I think that, unfortunately, there are allies of the president who are yet again going to try and taint the process before it even begins, to create in the American public skepticism and distrust of their government. We have seen this happen continuously. But we who are patriots, Joy, who love our country and know we are better than this, we're not going to stand for that, because we know that our system can have integrity if it is led by people who have integrity. And so I have full faith and confidence in the ability of the United States House of Representatives and its leaders to conduct a hearing and a series of hearings with integrity to get to the truth.
And we know now that the whistleblower is agreed to testify, and that Chairman Schiff has said that they will receive this person's testimony. A, what are you hoping to hear from this whistleblower? And B, do you believe that the committee should also call those who spoke with the whistleblower? Presumably, they were able to get the underlying information and bring White House officials in to try to find out who hid the actual transcript of the conversation between Donald Trump and the president of Ukraine. Should people from the White House also have to come and testify as to that?
Well, absolutely. Anybody who has information about what happened should be prepared to come forward and tell the truth. But here's the thing, Joy. Basically, the president has confessed. And there is evidence of consciousness of guilt, which is they tried to bury the transcript. We've got a transcript. I mean, frankly, people have said to me, do you think these hearings are going to take very long? Not really, because there's a whole lot of direct evidence, including a virtual confession. So we just need to get on with it. And not be distracted by the okey doke and those people who have us looking at the shiny thing over there.
Well, earlier this morning, we spoke with one of your rivals for the Democratic nomination, Beto O'Rourke, who called not only for the impeachment of Donald Trump, but for him to resign.
The United States, was prepared to use taxpayer dollars to negotiate, because that's the aid to Ukraine. Let's be clear about that. That's American taxpayer dollars.
Right. I think we lost you just from...
He was prepared to hold those dollars hostage for his political gain.
And I'm sorry, I believe we lost you just for a moment in your answer there. So I apologize for that. But I want to ask you, just re-up again, one of your rivals for the 2020 nomination, Beto O'Rourke, has called Donald Trump not just to be impeached, but also called on him to resign. Do you agree that the president should resign over what we know about what he did to the president of Ukraine?
I think we should take it one step at a time. And right now, I am very, I have nothing but praise for Nancy Pelosi and the members of the House of Representatives who, in earnest, have initiated this process. The American people have a right to know that again, what the framers designed, which is that there would be a system of checks and balances. I think the American people have a right to see that happen, to know that when we get to the probably inevitable conclusion, that there was a system of integrity. And plus, let's just be honest, Donald Trump's not going to resign. He's just not. That's not his nature. That's not his character. But the process should begin. Yeah. And it begin in earnest, which I have full confidence it will.
The polling on impeachment has moved very, very quickly. And we now have new numbers out of CBS, which show that 55% of Americans approve of the impeachment inquiry into the president, 45% disapprove. Given the speed with which the public has caught up with what originally was simply the progressive part of the Democratic Party, do you now believe that there will be more pressure on members of your body, of the United States Senate, to take seriously these charges, to take them up? And can you foresee any of your colleagues on the Republican side voting to convict this president?
I hope so, Joy. We have seen acts of courage in the United States Senate. We have seen people speak up, and I hope on this one, which is just so blatant. I mean, it's so blatant. I do hope that there will be people who just have to look in the mirror and agree that on this one, you got to put country before party. So we'll see. I don't know. We have so many other examples of people not stepping up and coddling his bad behavior because, apparently and clearly they're concerned that their constituents will not find that to be popular and that they could suffer politically for it. But I think sometimes you got to just say and know that your constituents may even say, I don't agree with you, but they will say, I respect you. And that can carry the day.
As a former prosecutor, if you were presented with a case like Donald Trump's, would you prosecute someone who did the things that Donald Trump did for obstruction of justice? Would you find crimes in what he did regarding what some people believe was an attempt at extortion of a foreign government? Would you prosecute Donald Trump?
I mean, look, let's just get going with this impeachment proceedings. And you know what? Here's the thing I also want to recognize about the leadership in the House of Representatives. Congressman Al Green, Congresswoman Maxine Waters have been saying from the beginning, this needs to start. This needs to happen. And they had the foresight and the vision to know that we had to get to a place, and we need to be at a place where we present this evidence and conduct this investigation to get to the heart of what should be accountability and transparency around the conduct and misconduct of this president. And that's where I'm focused. But again, he's confessed. So there you are.
And when he's a civilian again, whether he is reelected or not, do you think he should be prosecuted, Donald Trump?
I think we'll get to that after we get him out of office.
And what about, I want to move on very briefly to your call. You would like to see Justice Kavanaugh impeached for what a lot of people would believe to be his untruthfulness and his behavior during his confirmation hearing. Do you believe that that is something that could happen?
Well, I'm glad you raised that, Joy. I mean, first of all, let's step back and realize how rapidly so many outrageous things are happening that we're no longer talking about what we were talking about just a couple.
Oh, I think we've lost the senator's audio. I apologize to Senator Harris. I think we have lost her audio. Very quickly, I want to get a reaction. We've kept our panel here. Very quickly to go around, your reaction, Midwin.
I think what she said is precisely what I had alluded to when I spoke earlier with respect to we have to have a hearing. We have to get it out to the American public. And again, when she asked those questions to Attorney General Barr, the fact that he hemmed and hawed and didn't have an answer, we now know, looking back, that was relevant.
Yeah, and I mean, on this question of Donald Trump, the senator seemed to have some hope. She seemed to be somewhat hopeful that some of her colleagues, when they heard all the evidence, would actually vote against Donald Trump. As she was saying that, you were nodding your head. You don't think it's going to happen.
Well, we shall see how it all plays out. But I'll tell you, the politics of it is she's very articulate. When Senator Harris asks a question, let me make you sure that she knows what the answer is.
She already knows what it is.
And that's what every attorney ought to do when they examine and cross-examine
She's doing well in South Carolina. She's taking votes from Joe Biden, and they have to be very careful how they handle Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And what this is going to do is this is going to be bad for Joe Biden, and it's going to be really good for the rest of the candidates, because you can't not have this mixed in with the politics of the day, and that's what's going to happen when this impeachment.
But can I bring it away from Joe Biden and bring it back to the President of the United States?
Yeah.
And the fact that I think Senator Harris said the thing that we should all keep in mind when she said, quote, he already confessed.
Yes, he already said it.
President Trump has already said many times on Twitter and in various press avails that, yeah, I did it. What was wrong with it? It was a beautiful call. It was a perfect call. But yes, also, he's already confessed.
But also, I think it's important to look at this. Donald Trump is consistent. He confessed to asking Ukraine for assistance, but we already know from the Mueller report that he also was happy with getting help from Russia for assistance in the 2016 election. So he is consistent.
He also confessed on NBC News that he fired Jim Comey because of Russia. So he's used to confessing and still, in his mind, getting away with it. Senator Kamala Harris, again, apologize for that audio problem toward the end, but thank you, Senator Harris, for joining us by phone, as well as Jonathan Capehart, Midwin.